Something woke me up at 4 in the morning, standing at the foot of my mattress. And when I tried to scream her name to come look, my own jaw locked shut from the inside, like another hand was holding it closed. I want to be clear about that part. It wasn't sleep paralysis. My arms worked, my legs worked. I sat up, I turned my head. I saw the shape in the dark exactly where my feet should have ended. And when I went to make a sound, the muscle under my ears went tight in a way muscles don't go tight on their own. Like someone reached up under my chin and pressed my teeth together from the inside. Then it was gone, and the room was just a room again. Curtains drawn, chair in the corner. My girlfriend asleep next to me with her mouth open, breathing slow. I need to back up a little. We'd been splitting a meth pipe in that apartment for 9 months. Same chair, same corner. Every night, curtains always closed because the plateau gets nosy, and the building across the alley has a clear line into our window. I was 24. My mother had died in the spring. I'd taken 3 days off the warehouse for the funeral and never really came back inside my own head after that. My girlfriend used heavier than I did, and she'd told me twice, calmly, that if I quit, she was gone. She had the lease. I had a record from when I was 19. Getting high in that corner with her was the only time we weren't fighting. And being not fighting was the closest thing to a life I had. So that's the context. That's why I didn't just walk out. The first thing I actually noticed before the job, before any of it, was that the corner got cold. Not drafty. Cold in a localized way. You could stand 2 feet away and be at room temperature, and then take 1 step and feel it on your face. I told myself it was the window seal. The window was nowhere near that corner. The cat told me before I told myself. She used to sleep on that chair every afternoon. Then 1 week she stopped. And the week after that, she started pissing on it. Only that chair. We'd clean it, she'd do it again the same night. I'd come home from a shift, and the apartment would smell like ammonia. And my girlfriend would be sitting in the chair anyway, lighter in hand, like she didn't notice. I started losing weight, 20 pounds in maybe 3 weeks. My girlfriend was using twice what I was, and her face was getting fuller. I'd watch her in the bathroom mirror behind me while I brushed my teeth, and her cheeks looked soft, and mine looked like somebody had taken a spoon to the underside of them. She stopped looking at me directly around then. She'd talk to me, she'd touch me, she'd pass me the pipe, but her eyes would land just past my shoulder every time, like there was a second person sitting where I was sitting, and she was addressing them instead. I tried to move the chair, just that. I dragged it across the room and put it against the opposite wall, by the kitchen doorway, and I went to bed feeling like I'd done something. I woke up at 5 in the morning sitting in it, in the corner, original spot. My feet were cold. My girlfriend was still asleep in the bed. I had no memory of getting up. I want you to understand I tried to be a normal person about this. I told myself I was sleepwalking. I told myself the weight was the drugs. I told myself the cat was stressed. I told myself the cold corner was a building issue and I'd call the landlord when I had the energy. Then the neighbor banged on the door at 3 a.m. I didn't know her. Older woman, 2 doors down. She was screaming through the wood that I had been calling her son's name through the wall for hours, and to stop. To please stop. That he was dead. That he died last winter. I opened the door because I didn't know what else to do, and she looked at me and went quiet, and then she said it again, much smaller. She said his name. I'd never heard it before in my life. I told her that. She called the cops anyway. They took a report. My name's on a piece of paper in a precinct now, next to a dead kid's name, and I have no way to explain how it got there. That was when I tried to quit. Cold. 4 days. I told my girlfriend I had the flu and slept on the couch and shook through it. And on the afternoon of the 4th day, I walked to the Dipper on Ontario for a Gatorade. I left the Gatorade on the counter and walked out, and a cruiser was already pulling up to the curb. I don't know if it was for me. I ran anyway. I have a record. I ran. And now there's a warrant. And the warrant has my real name on it. And I can't go to work without thinking about it. I came home and my girlfriend was sober for the first time in months. She was sitting on the bed looking at the corner. She said, very quietly, without turning her head, "How long have they been standing behind you?" I asked her what she meant. She didn't answer. She got up, she walked to the kitchen. She came back with the pipe, and that night she used more than I've ever seen anyone use in one sitting. And she hasn't said a word about that corner since. 3 nights ago, I woke up holding a kitchen knife over her while she slept. I don't remember walking to the drawer. The cat was sitting in the corner with her tail curled around her feet, looking up at nothing, purring. I put the knife back. I sat on the floor in the bathroom until the sun came up. Then I went into the living room and I picked up the chair and I carried it down 3 flights of stairs and out into the alley, and I broke the legs off it with my boot and I burned it in a metal bin behind the building. I stood there until it was just ash and screws. I came back upstairs. I locked the door. I turned on every light. There are 2 fresh impressions in the carpet where the chair legs used to be, and there's a 3rd set behind where I always sat. I leaned in to adjust my father's morphine drip, and he opened his eyes and said, in my dead brother's exact voice, cadence, and lisp, "You weren't supposed to come back into the room yet." I want to tell you about the lisp first, because everything else hinges on it. My brother had a soft S. He worked it out of his speech by the time he was 15, because kids are cruel, and he was tired of being a target. By the time he died at 16, you couldn't hear it anymore, unless he was tired or laughing. My father has perfect diction, even now, dying, even on the heaviest doses. He speaks like a man given a deposition. The lisp landed on the word supposed. It bent the S the exact way my brother's mouth used to bend it. I felt it in my chest before I understood it in my head. I'm 33. I live 40 minutes from my parents. My sisters live in other provinces and have small children and jobs they can't leave. So when the hospice nurse said weeks, maybe days, and my mother said she couldn't be the one to sit with him through the nights, I took the nights. That's the part everyone agreed on without saying it out loud. I'm the one who found my brother. I'm the one who didn't cry at the funeral. I'm the strong one. The strong one takes the night shift. He didn't speak again that first night. I sat in the chair beside the rented hospital bed in our living room and watched his chest move and told myself I'd heard wrong. The morphine does things. I'd been awake 19 hours. People hear what they want to hear, and there's no one on earth I'd want to hear more than my brother. 2 nights later, it told me where the marble was. My brother had a blue glass marble he loved when he was 8. He lost it in 1998, and we tore the house apart for it. My mother pulled the couch cushions. My father took the vent covers off. It was never found. That night, my father opened his eyes and said, in my brother's voice, "It's behind the outlet in my old room, lower left. It rolled inside the wall." Then he closed his eyes. I went upstairs. I unscrewed the outlet plate in what used to be my brother's room. I reached in with 2 fingers and pulled out a blue glass marble, dusty, scratched, exactly the one. I sat on the floor of his old room with it in my palm for a long time. I want to be honest, for about an hour I thought it was him. I thought my brother had found a way back through my father. That grief had earned us this, that something was being given to me. I held the marble and I cried for the first time in 17 years. Then I started asking questions. I asked it things only my brother would know. The name of the cat we had when we were small. What he called the spot under the stairs. The thing he said to me the night before he died. When I drove him home from a friend's house and he was quiet the whole way. It answered all of them. Voice, cadence, the small laugh he did through his nose. Every answer was correct. And then it asked me something back. It said, "Why did you wait 20 minutes before calling the ambulance?" I have never told that to a living person. Not my mother, not my sisters, not a therapist, because I never went to one. I found him at 4 in the afternoon and I called at 4:20. And I have spent 17 years lying about that gap by minutes, by accident, by silence. Nobody knows. The dispatcher's log says 4:21. That's all anyone has ever had on me. My father, in the bed, smiled with his eyes closed. I tried to step out. I told my sister I needed one night to sleep at my own apartment. She drove in. She covered. She called me at 4 in the morning crying, but happy crying, the way people cry when they get a gift they didn't expect. She said, "He was so lucid tonight. He told me the story about the bike with the streamers. I didn't even know he remembered that." I bought my brother that bike the week before he died. Pink and white streamers off the handlebars because he asked for them and didn't care who laughed. I gave it to him in the driveway. Nobody else was there. I never told my parents. I never told anyone. That bike sat in our garage for 10 years after the funeral, and my mother thought it was a neighbor's. I drove back the next morning. I didn't sleep at home again. I tried, once, to record it. I sat the phone on the side table with the voice memo running. My father slept through the entire night. The second I turned the phone off and put it in my pocket, he opened his eyes and said, in my brother's voice, "Not tonight, okay?" Then he went back to sleep. I tried twice more. Same result. It knows. I don't know how it knows, but it knows. The hospice nurse mentioned, the way nurses mention things, that my father had been calling her by a name in his sleep during her afternoon checks. She asked if it was a relative. She said the name. I said it was his brother who passed years ago. She wrote something on her clipboard. She looked at me a bit too long. I couldn't tell her. I couldn't tell my mother. My mother has been waiting 17 years for a sign. Any sign. And if I told her what was happening in that living room, she would sit in the chair next to that bed and she would not leave. And she would say yes to whatever it asked. One morning, my father came back. It was about 90 seconds. His eyes focused. He looked at me like he used to look at me when I was 8 and had broken something and he was deciding whether to be angry. He gripped my wrist. His hand was so light it felt like paper. He said, "Don't let me talk tonight. Whatever I say tonight, do not let me finish this sentence." Then his eyes slid sideways and he was gone again. And an hour later, when he woke up, he didn't remember saying it. I sat with him that night with my hands in my lap and my jaw tight. Around 2 in the morning, he opened his eyes and smiled. And in my brother's voice, with the soft S, calm and patient, he said, "I figured out how to do yours too. Listen." And then my father's mouth moved and my voice came out of it. Not an impression. Mine. The exact pitch. The little catch I get on hard consonants. It said, "Hi Mom, I'm home." Downstairs, that deadbolt on the front door turned over by itself. I heard it. The hallway light was off and the house was quiet, and the lock just rolled. The way it rolls when you turn a key from the inside. I didn't go down. I sat in the chair. I watched the rest of the night pass on the clock on the cable box. My father slept the gentle sleep he'd been sleeping for weeks. At some point near dawn, I realized I was holding the marble in my pocket so tight my hand had cramped around it. He passed at 3:14 a.m. on a Thursday. I know because I was looking at the clock. His breath got slower and slower, and then there was a long pause, and then there wasn't another one. The room went quiet in a way I cannot describe to you. I had never been in a room that quiet. The fridge wasn't humming. The clock wasn't ticking. The street outside wasn't doing whatever streets do. Everything stopped to listen. I sat with him. I held his hand, which was already cooling, and I told him I loved him. And I told him I was sorry about the 20 minutes. From the kitchen downstairs, in my brother's voice, with my brother's lisp, soft and patient and unhurried, I heard, "Come down. Mom made breakfast." He looked up from the conveyor belt mid-scan, smiled at me by my full name, the one that isn't on my name tag, and said, "You shouldn't have followed me on Tuesday." I want to start there because that's the moment I understood I was already inside something. Everything before that I can explain. Everything after, I can't. I was 22. I'd been working register 4 at 24-hour supermarket on the edge of town for about a year and a half. Overnight shift, 11 to 7, because it paid $2 more an hour, and because my mother was in a long-term care bed 2 towns over and the debt from her first round of treatment had a payment plan attached to my paychecks. I needed the shift. I couldn't quit without notice, without breaking the plan. That's the part you have to understand before any of the rest of it makes sense. The shift is dead. Truckers, drunks, insomniacs, the occasional nurse coming off a double. You start cataloging people because there's nothing else to look at. The woman who only buys frozen peas, the kid who counts his change twice. You do it to stay awake. He started coming in around the end of my second month. Same time every night. Around 2:40. Same order. Industrial bleach, 2 jugs. Ammonia, 1 bottle. Contractor grade trash bags, the black ones. The contractor pack. A box of lye. 2 bags of unscented cat litter. Nothing else. Ever. 11 weeks. He paid cash, exact change, down to the penny, including tax. He never looked at the screen. He'd hand me the bills and coins already counted before I'd finished scanning. I started watching for it. I'd drink something up slow, hoping the total would change, hoping he'd reach into his pocket again. He never did. He'd already know. I told myself 100 things about him. He owned cats. He was a janitor. He cleaned crime scenes legally for a company. He had a meth lab. He had a hobby. He was lonely. He was nothing. People buy weird groceries. It's a free country. On a Tuesday after my shift, I followed him. I don't have a clean reason for it. I was tired. I had nothing to go home to. I'd watched him push his cart out at 2:51 a.m. for 11 weeks, and I wanted to know where the Bleach was going. I gave him a block of distance. He drove a beige sedan, the kind you don't remember. He drove out of the lot, took the service road, took 2 turns, and pulled into a residential garage on a street I'd never been on. The garage was attached to nothing. There was no house behind it. Just a single-car garage standing on a lot, with grass around it, and the door rolling down behind his car as I drove past. I went around the block. I came back 20 minutes later because I wanted to see it again in daylight, or as close to daylight as you get at 3 in the morning. The garage was gone. Where the door had been, there was brick. Old brick, weathered, with moss in the mortar. The kind of brick that has been a wall for 40 years. I drove home. I didn't sleep. The next night, he came through my line at 2:40. Same order, exact change. He didn't say anything. He didn't look at me any differently. I almost convinced myself I'd gotten the street wrong. A week after the Tuesday, my uniform started to smell. It wasn't bleach, it was under the bleach. Something sweet, like fruit gone past the point of fruit. I washed the shirt 3 times. I washed myself 3 times. The smell stayed in my skin, in my hair, in the cloth of the polo, in the lining of my coat. The bagger on register 3 asked if I was eating okay. The kid on register 6 stopped clocking in next to me. I started taking my breaks in the parking lot because nobody would stand near me indoors. Then he changed the order. One night, same time, he put everything on the belt, and there was twice as much of it. 2 jugs became 4. The ammonia doubled. 2 boxes of lye. 4 bags of litter. I scanned it slow. He watched me, and then last he put down one more item. A child's toothbrush. Soft bristle. Pink. Still in its plastic. He looked at me while I scanned it. He paid exact change. I filed an incident report the next morning. I wrote down what he bought. I wrote that I felt unsafe. I gave it to my manager, who signed it without reading it and put it in a folder. The next night, I came in and opened my locker, and the report was sitting on top of my jacket. My home address was handwritten across the bottom in blue ink, the blue ink we use on the price tags. The pen lives behind the customer service desk. I switched to days. I told my manager it was about my mother. He shrugged and moved me to a Tuesday through Saturday, 2 to 10. I felt my shoulders come down for the first time in months on that first afternoon. The store was loud. There were children in it. There was sun through the front windows. At 2 o'clock exactly, he walked in. Same coat, same order. He went through register 2, not mine, and I watched him from the customer service desk where I was restocking gift cards. And the woman scanning his bleach laughed at something he said. When he left, I asked her about him. She said he'd been coming in for years. Years. Days, evenings, overnights, didn't matter. He was a regular. She asked me if I was okay. She said I looked like I was going to be sick. I called my mother's care home from the break room. The nurse picked up cheerful. She said it was sweet of me to send flowers. I told her I hadn't sent flowers. She said a very polite man had dropped them off that morning. White ones and scented, wrapped in heavy black plastic, and that he'd told her he was a coworker of mine, and he just wanted to say he was thinking of my mom. She told me the room number he'd asked for, the correct room number, the one I had never given anybody at the store. I quit that afternoon. I broke the payment plan. I packed the car that night. I drove east for 2 days. I rented a basement apartment in a city where I had never been and didn't know anybody, and I started working under my middle name at a call center. I called my mother every Sunday from a number she didn't recognize because I was afraid of what would be listening to the other one. I told her I loved her. I told her I was sorry. She forgave me before I asked. 6 months in, I came home from a closing shift and there was a grocery bag on the welcome mat outside my door. 2 jugs of bleach, ammonia, lye, a contractor pack of black trash bags, 2 bags of unscented cat litter, and sitting on top a child's toothbrush, soft bristle, pink, still sealed in plastic. The receipt was folded at the bottom of the bag. The store name on it was my old store, 2 provinces away. The date on it was tomorrow.